Hi, friends. My name is Lauren Lawrence. For those of you who don't know me, I am the founder of Stenovate. I'm also a court reporter in our PR. Stenovate is partnering up with a special guest, John McGraw, who wore purple for us today. Thank you for joining us, John. Just to give you guys a little bit of background on why we're doing this webinar, it's because the whole transcript community right now is bored or lacking work right now as we are facing kind of a standstill in the legal system due to COVID-19. And in this time, Stenovate really wanted just to provide some support that's a little outside of the norm. Normally we're providing you transcript efficiency and collaboration tools, but because we're not doing a whole lot of transcribing or collaborating right now, we thought it was really important to support you in a different way. And so we have brought in John McGraw from Vision Pursue, which is I'm gonna do my best to say this right. It's a performance mindset training and technology company. And John can tell you more about it, but essentially I'm going to sum it up as they help people live happier lives. They help you, they train you to help them understand and respond to emotions through mindset training. And it's really remarkable what John teaches and how it transfers both into times like this during COVID and then even afterwards in everyday life, dealing with either monotony, just the everyday stuff, or high stress situations, which we all know court reporters experience. So we are super, super, super excited to have John here with us. And with that said, John, I'm turning it over to you.
Right. Lauren, thank you. I'm excited to be with all of you and share some thoughts. So I'm going to give you a little context and then we'll jump right into the training. It's very appropriate. I just finished training a large law firm, lawyers, and I know the impact that you all are having in the legal industry. And there's probably no other message that I could give someone right now that would be as impactful as the one I'm going to share with you. The context of this, how in the world did a former NFL player get into mindset training? One is I learned a lot of these lessons the hard way, performing at an extremely high level. On top of that, I retired from the NFL because of concussions. And so I became fascinated by the neuroscience and the health psychology and the performance psychology. And so I'm going to teach you all a very simple acronym, some powerful mental skills that can help us respond to our environment, no matter what it is, but in particular, when there is a lot of challenge, a lot of adversity, a lot of uncertainty. This is an anchor that we teach to organizations all over the country, sports teams, professional sports teams, and it's a proven response plan when challenge and adversity hits us. So I'm super excited to share this with you. Lauren, Stenovate, thank you so much for the opportunity. Let's jump into it. I'm going to share my screen with you all. There we go. And then I'm going to start the slideshow. All right. Great. Lauren, is that looking good to you?
Looks awesome.
Okay, great. So some mindset skills, mental, emotional skills, we're calling them here, like we said. I want to start with a couple of thought experiments. The first one is this. You're going to go into a cage with an untamed, hungry lion, and you get to pick one of three objects to give you the best chance to survive. This is important, a really important decision you're about to make. The first object, a crowbar. The second object, a chair. The third object, a ham sandwich. I want you to take a moment and really think about this. Which one are you taking into the cage with the hungry lion to give you the best chance of survival? All right, have you decided? Okay, first I want to tell you that the most popular one is the ham sandwich, and it's for a number of different reasons. The most popular one, it's to distract the lion, right? The other one, it's their last meal. They're going to go out with a bang and enjoy the ham sandwich. The point here is that there is one object that in reality, and there's been some research done around this, actually gives you the best chance of survival, and it's the chair. And if you remember lion tamers from the circus, these images like this, you remember that they always had a stool or a chair in their hand. And I don't know if you're like me, I never really wondered why until I was talking to a psychologist, and the psychologist said that they theorize that the shape of the four legs coming at the lion confuses the lion. Because other objects don't have the impact that the chair has on the lion. Other objects, this lion just knocks down. But this one in particular confuses the lion. And the theory is that the shape of the four legs coming at the lion confuses it, and it doesn't know how to attack. So this big, powerful beast is rendered somewhat harmless by this inanimate object. Now, in reality, is the chair an obstacle or a threat to this lion? Of course not. In reality, it's not at all. But reality isn't as important as perception. And to the lion's brain, this chair is more than just an object. It's a real obstacle. And I know for me in my NFL career, towards the end of it, I became more and more aware of these chairs that I had in my life. And we all have these chairs, right? They can hit us, they can trigger us, and they prevent us from being at our best. And so we want to have a response plan when these chairs hit us. For a lot of us, the pandemic is a chair for us, and all the challenges that the pandemic has created for us. We have some chairs coming at us, and I want to teach you a really powerful 3-step response plan. Before we get there, one more thought experiment. Here we go. And I want you to think about a typical workday for you, both before COVID-19 and right now. And I want you to break it down, a typical day, down into 4 categories. So the first category is stress and annoyance. What percentage of today and what percentage of previous work days felt like a stressful and annoying experience? The second one is monotony. So it's not quite as bad as I'm stressed out, but I'm only doing what I'm doing as a means to an end. I'm just trying to get to the next thing. The third category, escape or shut down. So these are some ways that I distract myself. I get some relief from the stress and the annoyance and the monotony. And the fourth category is where I feel really good. I feel engaged. I feel purposeful in the work that I'm doing without these escape activities. I want you to think about this for yourself. All 4 add up to 100%. I want you to think, what's a typical day feel like for you right now? And if you're like most people, it looks something like this, where around 80% of a typical workday feels like a stressful, annoying, monotonous experience that we want to escape from. And right now, with COVID-19, there's even more challenges. And maybe there's a little less stress, but maybe there's more monotony. Right? And as things come back on, a legal industry comes back online, and all of a sudden you're inundated with work, stress is probably going to go back up. The point being here is that while some stress and monotony and annoyance is just a part of life, just a part of performance, it doesn't have to be this much. It doesn't have to look like this. And this was my experience living my dream in the NFL, right? Where I thought, gosh, what a great life, right? You get to play sports for a living, make good money doing it. Like, it was hard for me to imagine a better picture for my life than that. The problem is that it felt just like this. And all my teammates were having a very similar experience. And what I began to realize was that while our environment is always going to impact us, what's making up our life experience is the way that our mind has been programmed to experience it. And that's what we call mindset. And the beautiful thing about that is that we have a lot more control over our mindset than we do the external world. And we can spend more time focused on how we're responding, focused on these mental skills, than trying to control everything in the external world, which we know really can't be controlled.
Yeah. Hey, John, I just want to call out for all the court reporters watching this. We spend a lot of time in that gray area because we're frequently just cranking out pages. And so that's where I feel specifically connected to this, is because we are just constantly going through the monotony of like, write, edit, proofread, write, edit, proofread. And so it's just the machine, right? And so I know that other court reporters will relate to this too. And it's like, we have a great portion of our life, but a lot of it is just stressful and just working. And so that's why we're so excited to be learning about this. So thank you. Please continue.
Yeah, well, you're not alone. All of you that are feeling that way. The first and most important thing is you're not alone. You're not the only person. I thought I was the only NFL player that wasn't enjoying most of my experience. Turns out no one else was either. We work in every major professional sport, and we see it in every sport. And this life experience is pervasive in every industry as well. So know that you're not alone, and also know that there are some things that we can do to make a big difference to get more green in this pie chart. The other point here that's really important is, what does this life experience impact? Right? If I have all this gray, what's this impacting? And it's impacting everything. This is the motivational behavioral driver of virtually everything that we do. And so I know Lauren helped me put these together. There's some elements here that are specific to you all. What is the impact of a really poor life experience on all of this? Right? And also think about personally with relationships and your energy and your sleep and recovery, how you're managing all of that. It's impacting everything. And what we found is a performance organization, performance mindset is all about elevating performance. But the best way to do that consistently over time is to shift this pie chart, shift this life experience pie chart, and all these other behaviors will begin to follow that through. You all ever wonder why your dog is happier than you? That's the caption that goes with this image. And this image captures life for a lot of us very well. Right? What's the dog experiencing? Reality, life, right? A walk in the park. What's the human experiencing? Everything else, right? All this stress and all the things that we have to worry about and think about and prepare for and learn from. And those are all helpful things. Those are good parts of our intelligence. But if we don't have the ability to respond to these, and if we're not aware of how much of our time and attention these are taking up, they begin to have a really, really big impact on us. And so what we find is that it's not as much our environment that's creating our life experience. It's all these automatic thoughts and automatic emotions. And there's some real value in those again. But the key here is if I don't have the ability to suspend these, and if I don't have the ability to respond to these effectively, they can become more harmful than productive. I do want to briefly show you some of the thought leaders and researchers that we rely heavily upon in this training program. Different influences from neuroscience and psychology. You might recognize some of these names if you're into neuroscience and health psychology. But thought leaders in their respective fields all have laid the groundwork for not only our training program, but many others. But this mindset training piece has a lot of research and science behind it. And so just know that it's rooted in that, and it's also been vetted out in various high-performing fields across the country. So I want to give you just a little bit of neuroscience, and then we're going to jump into the how-to here. This orange reddish structure is the limbic region of your brain. It's where all your emotions come from. And it's really what's driving most of our behavior. And all of this is happening automatically. Most people would think that we're thinking beings that feel. We have a thought and then we have a feeling about it. It's the exact opposite. We feel and then we think. Everything runs through the limbic brain first. And so I want you to experience this firsthand. Whoops. There we go. And I want you to, for the next 10 seconds, give a command to your automatic brain to stop thinking. Don't have any thoughts. Clean slate. Don't think about not thinking. Just clean slate for the next 10 seconds. And I want you to notice what happens. Ready? Begin. And stop. All right, how'd you do? You're like most people, your brain didn't stop thinking. And if you're like a lot of people, it started thinking more. And it started thinking about what's going on, why are we doing this, what's going to happen. And it's just going all the time. And I want you to experience the automatic nature of that. You weren't picking those thoughts. Part of your intelligence, your automatic brain was picking them for you. And that's a really important distinction. And then what happens is these automatic thoughts and automatic emotions come to our prefrontal cortex, our conscious awareness, already laced with meaning or emotion. And so it serves our reality up for us. So we don't think, analyze someone and say, oh, that's an annoying person. Our automatic brain just immediately makes us annoyed and we go, oh, yeah, that's an annoying person. It happens automatically for us. And the stimulus and response for most people happens so quickly they don't recognize that there's some control that they have. Right? And if we can slow down stimulus and response, we can choose our response differently. And this is where the magic happens. This is what mindset training is all about. And we can actually begin to retrain our limbic brain, our emotional brain, by responding differently when we get triggered. Right? When that chair comes at us and we feel all that emotion and we want to go into our natural reactive programming, we can slow that down and choose a different response. So let's jump into it. So this is an acronym called TED Now. Each letter stands for the words. I want to break down each one, the impact it has on your brain and on your mind, and why it's so important. The T stands for trust. Now, trust does amazing things for the brain. Anytime we don't know what we can trust in, crazy chemicals get released. All kinds of instability, uncertainty start to flash. Our brain likes to go into worst case scenarios. It starts playing out all these different things are probably never going to happen, but it's only there trying to protect us because we don't know what we can trust in. And so as soon as you can find what you can trust in, your brain will begin to calm down and the chemicals will regulate in a better way. And that could be trusting in the bigger picture, right? Kind of looking back saying, hey, things kind of had a way of working out. You can trust in that. Maybe you have faith in God. Hey, I'm going to trust in God. I'm going to trust in myself. I'm going to trust in my team. I'm going to trust in my process, right? So getting some clarity around what I can trust in this moment is really, really helpful. And I want to explain this more using a true story from the Vietnam War. And this research comes from Jim Collins' book, Good to Great. And in that book they're doing research on leaders and CEOs that respond to adversity the best. And they're trying to identify, okay, what traits do these leaders have that make them rise to the occasion when adversity hits? And some of these leaders just crumble, right, and they fall. But these other leaders, they're rising to the challenge. What's different about them? And what stood out to them was Admiral Stockdale. In 1967, he was shot down over Vietnam during the war. And he was imprisoned, and he spent 7.5 years in a POW camp in Vietnam. Think about that for a second. 7.5 years in a POW camp, was tortured many times. But he came through mentally strong, and he survived the whole ordeal. And Jim Collins gets to know him and begins to ask him, what allowed you to come through so strong? What mindset did you have going into it? And his response is fascinating. The first thing he said was that I never lost faith that in the end I would prevail. He said he never stopped trusting that in the end he would get out. He also said that being imprisoned in that war would be the defining event of his life, that in retrospect he would not trade. You should think about that for a second. He's currently imprisoned, and in his mind he's thinking, this will be the defining event of my life, that in retrospect I would not trade. And it's amazing how he begins to tell a story and see himself on the other side of it telling that story. But there's another point here that's really important, that he had faith, he was trusting in the bigger picture, but then Jim Collins asked him again, he said, okay, what about those that didn't do so well? What about those that didn't make it out? And Admiral Stockdale said, oh, it was easy, it was the optimists. Jim Collins was confused. He said, what do you mean? You were optimistic. And Admiral Stockdale said, no, I was not optimistic. He said, I never lost faith that in the end I would prevail. But the optimists always thought we'd be out by Christmas. Right? And then Christmas would come and go, and they thought, well, maybe it's going to be Easter. And then Thanksgiving. And then another Christmas would come and go. And he said they died of a broken heart. And the reason was because they tried to use optimism or positive psychology to begin to write the final chapter, to write the end of the story. And what that did was it created unrealistic expectations for them. And then every time their expectations weren't met, they were crushed. And you can only get crushed so many times. And we're doing this for ourselves a lot. We're setting up these unrealistic expectations for the world around us because we don't like not knowing. But that's exactly what trust is. That's what faith is. It's saying, I'm okay not knowing. I don't have to know all the details. I don't have to know how this is all going to play out. I can still trust it's going to work out in the long run. I will prevail. I will get through this. In the short run, I don't know how that's all going to play out. So I'm not going to create unrealistic expectations for myself. Steve Jobs, the founder of Apple, said it this way at a commencement speech at Stanford University. He said, you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. Because looking forward, we don't know how it's all going to play out. We don't have all the information. Right? But looking back, we can look and see how things kind of work together. Right? But we only have that in retrospect. So he said, you got to trust in something. And he went through his list of things that he trusted in when he hit really hard times, when he got fired from Apple and was devastated, right? And wanted to run away from Silicon Valley. And he goes in to say how trust was such an important element for him. So that's trust. The E stands for embrace. Embracing is really a really important skill. And I want to talk about embracing both in terms of emotions and in terms of situations. So in terms of emotions, like poor Charlie Brown here, a lot of times we're not experiencing emotion about what's actually happening. We're experiencing emotion about our emotion. Right? We have anxieties about our anxieties. We're angry about our fear. Right? We're resentful about our uncertainty. Right? And all of a sudden we start to pile emotion on emotion because no one ever taught us how to respond to emotion when it comes. No one taught us what emotion is even. And all emotion is are chemicals in the brain and body designed to give you a really important message, an important alert about something in the external world or something in your internal world. And what we naturally do when something's uncomfortable or painful, we resist it. And we've been taught our whole lives, if you're like me, that there's some really good emotions and I want to try to feel those all the time, and there's some really bad emotions I want to avoid those at all costs. Don't feel these and try to feel these. And that is a very unhealthy relationship with emotion, because all emotion is good. And it's trying to give us an important message. And if we would just take the message, if we would just embrace the messenger, then the messenger will let go and move on. The chemicals will process, and we can get back to what we have control of. But too many times we resist the emotion. We want to feel different than how we feel, and we end up like Charlie Brown, where we just have this complexity of emotion on top of emotion. And then it gets overwhelming and it's too much. And then we got to find a reason to escape, or a way to escape from it to get some relief. So I want to play a brief video. This is Dr. Kelly McGonigal. She's a health psychologist at Stanford University. She's a stress expert. And I want you to think about stress, for example. What's your relationship to stress? Do you have a positive relation with stress? Do you have a negative? If you're like most people, you've been taught that stress is bad. And stress is even doing enormous damage to people, to their health, even killing people. So I want you to hear from Dr. Kelly what the latest research is showing around stress and our relationship to stress, and then we'll talk about it together.
Let me start with the study that made me rethink my whole approach to stress. This study tracked 30,000 adults in the United States for 8 years, and they started by asking people, how much stress have you experienced in the last year? They also asked, do you believe that stress is harmful for your health? And then they used public death records to find out who died. Okay, some bad news first. People who experienced a lot of stress in the previous year had a 43% increased risk of dying. But that was only true for the people who also believed that stress is harmful for your health. People who experienced a lot of stress but did not view stress as harmful were no more likely to die. In fact, they had the lowest risk of dying of anyone in the study, including people who had relatively little stress. Now, the researchers estimated that over the 8 years they were tracking deaths, 182,000 Americans died prematurely, not from stress, but from the belief that stress is bad for you. Now, that is exactly what participants were told in a study conducted at Harvard University. Before they went through the social stress test, they were taught to rethink their stress response as helpful. That pounding heart is preparing you for action. If you're breathing faster, it's no problem. It's getting more oxygen to your brain. And participants who learned to view the stress response as helpful for their performance, they were less stressed out, less anxious, more confident. But the most fascinating finding to me was how their physical stress response changed. Now, in a typical stress response, your heart rate goes up and your blood vessels constrict like this. And this is one of the reasons that chronic stress is sometimes associated with cardiovascular disease. It's not really healthy to be in this state all the time. But in the study, when participants viewed their stress response as helpful, their blood vessels stayed relaxed like this. Their heart was still pounding, but this is a much healthier cardiovascular profile. It actually looks a lot like what happens in moments of joy and courage.
All right. So this is some really important news I want to share with you. First thing I want to ask is, how many of you still think stress is bad for you? Hopefully none of you are raising your hand. Because stress is really good. It's our response to stress that makes stress harmful for us, or makes it a really productive energy source for us. So this response plan, this ability to embrace the stress, embrace what's happening, is really, really important.
Hey, John, can I just throw in a little nugget here?
Please do.
It's actually really funny because she was talking about the blood vessels constricting or staying open. And I know for a fact, like I was this close to passing out the day that I passed my last court reporting test to get out of school. Because I'm pretty sure that's exactly what was happening. Like it's one of those court reporters go through these 5-minute takes and they have to pass at 95% accuracy. And it's very, very stressful. And if you don't get it, then you have to wait for the next test. And so it's this ongoing stress cycle of like, these 5 minutes mean everything, right? And I'm sure you can relate with your athletic experience. And so I just want to call that out, that like, I think a lot of students, like when they actually pass court reporting tests, it's when they've somehow figured out how to calm down. And it's really interesting that every school teaches that, like, you got to figure out how to stay calm. And they give you all these techniques, like stare at the wall, pick a spot. And it's all of these different pieces, but it's like, if they actually had a program like what you guys are teaching here and how to work through those emotions, that way you can view them as helpful instead of as a bad thing and trying to resist them. I think the pass rate for court reporters would go through the roof, because it's just a totally different feeling. Like, you shouldn't be passing out after a court reporting test, but yet a lot of us feel like we're going to, and it's just the most like terrifying time. And they get out and it's like they finally made it, and it's a huge deal because it's so intense. So
yeah, that's so good. I'm glad you shared that. I had tremendous performance anxiety throughout my whole NFL career. No one else really knew about it. I didn't feel comfortable sharing it, but it's perfectly normal now. The team we work with, that's one of the first things we discuss. And what you see routinely is exactly what you're saying. We're resisting the stress response. We're resisting the anxiety. And what I challenge all of you is to change that relationship. Make friends with the stress, because it is there to help you. It's increasing your memory, your focus, your energy. It's doing so many really good things in your body if we don't resist it. Mm-hmm. If you welcome it, embrace it, get into alignment with it, I'm telling you, your performance will go up. It's when we resist it that our performance goes down.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. It makes just a lot of sense, a lot of connections here. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, good points. So embracing emotion is really important. Also, embracing our circumstance is really important. So I want to explain this using poker as an example. I don't know how many of you are poker players, maybe not too many, but you understand the game. And my question for you is this. Do you think that the best poker players in the world are the best players because they always get dealt the best hand? Hopefully your head's shaking no right now. Of course not. They get dealt the same hands as everyone else over the long run. The difference is the best poker players know how to play whatever hand they get dealt the best. I'll say that again. The difference is the best poker players know how to play whatever hand they get dealt the best. And I'm telling you, the hand that you've been dealt is the same hand everyone else gets dealt over the long run. All right. Now, occasionally, we get a few bad hands in a row, but I'm telling you that you haven't been dealt a worse hand than anybody. Everyone has struggle. Everyone has challenge. Even the most affluent people who you think fall with a silver spoon in their mouth, I promise you, they are dealing with all kinds of challenge. And in their mind, they would trade places with you. It's really easy to fall into this victim mindset that this always happens to me. I'm the unlucky one, right? And what happens is we don't then have the ability to play whatever hand we've been dealt best. But if we can maintain this longer term view that, hey, over the long run, I'm going to get dealt the same hands. I just need to play whatever hand I've been dealt the best I can, and everything else will take care of itself. And that's what the best poker players are able to do. Sometimes the hand just flat out sucks. It's just a hard hand, and in the military they call it embrace the suck. And it makes sense. There's a lot of unfair, unjust things that happen in the military, but our military members don't have the luxury of whining and complaining about why it's not fair and why it shouldn't be happening. Because while they're going through that, people's lives are on the line. So they are taught to, as quickly as they can, embrace the suck, embrace what's happening, so they can get into alignment with it, and then choose how they're going to respond more productively. What it does, it gets their power back. Right? It gets more influence over changing things in the future. So this embracing what is not surrender to what is. It's surrender, at least internally, but externally it allows me to be more effective in how I respond to my environment. So maybe right now during this pandemic, embrace the suck would be a helpful reminder, a helpful mantra for you as we're going through these challenges. And we can either resist or we can embrace. And resistance is just going to create more internal emotion, more anxiety on anxiety. Embracing is a proven model for processing those chemicals effectively and helping us get back the part of our brain that's better at problem solving, more creativity, more impulse control. It's just a better part of the brain to operate from. We work with a lot of professional athletes, a lot of student athletes, and we like to ask them routinely on game day, would you like to be a 1 or 10 on confidence? And of course, they always say 10. We ask, okay, anxiety, you want to be a 1 or 10? They always say 1, right? 10 confidence, 1 anxiety. And then we ask them, okay, what's the reality on game day? What do you think you're going to be feeling? And they're always like the opposite. I'm going to be a 1 confidence, 10 anxiety. We tell them 1, expect that. And 2, that's perfectly normal. And 3, you can perform no matter how you feel. And that's true confidence. And we go back through their career and we say, talk about your best performances. And they think about their best performances. And we ask them, okay, how anxious were you before that game? And they're always like, I was terrified. Right? I was scared to death. And they performed really well. And we say, okay, let's look at your worst performances ever. And they go through it. A lot of times is when they were supremely confident, maybe a little arrogant. And they begin to see that there's no correlation, at least there doesn't have to be correlation between how I feel and how I perform. I can perform no matter how I feel. And that's embracing, and that's really true confidence. And what you're doing there is you're just working with whatever you have. So wherever you're at right now is where you're supposed to be at. I'm going to embrace that. Whatever my mindset is doing right now, I can still win. I can perform with wherever my mindset's at, and that's embrace. Anytime I'm trying to feel differently than how I feel, that creates resistance, right? I'm trying to have more confidence. The harder you chase after confidence, the further away from it you get. And so this embrace piece is really important. That wherever I'm at right now is where I'm supposed to be at, and I can still perform, I can execute, I can still win if I embrace it. Right? And that's what Admiral Stockdale was able to do, coming back to the story, by trusting in the bigger picture, right, and recognizing that this would be a defining moment in his life. He was able to face the most brutal facts in his current reality. But if we're not trusting in the bigger picture, right, and we're trying to tell a different story, and we're trying to think positive, it's really challenging, really difficult for us to embrace reality. We call it expect the expected, to expect that things are going to continue about how they are. Doesn't mean I don't have high expectations for the future, but in the short term, I'm going to get my expectations into alignment with reality. And trusting and embracing allows me to do that. It allows me to embrace the most difficult of circumstances. Right? And for Admiral Stockdale, was realizing I'm not getting out of here by Christmas. And because he was able to embrace that, he didn't have that huge letdown when Christmas came and went, like everyone else did. He didn't have to experience that, and it gave him strength and gave him mental toughness. All right, so trust, embrace, and the D stands for do. Do your best, do what you can, do your job. And ultimately, this is about controlling the controllable, but it's amazing to me how quickly we can get so distracted, right, and so out of sorts that we forget to do the most simple thing. Just do the simple thing of doing our job, doing it as best we can. Right? Or just controlling the things that we have control over. In the military, of course, they're all about execution, what allows us to just go out and do our job as simply as we can. And I want to walk you through a very simple control the controllable exercise. You've maybe heard this mental skill being talked about a lot right now during the pandemic, because this is getting us distracted by so many other things. It's hard to stay focused on what we have control over. So I want to take you through a list of things here, and I want you just to see, okay, where should my focus be spending most of its time? Right? What about my long-term health? Do I have complete control over whether I get the virus, whether I don't, how my body's going to react, other health issues, or do I have more control over just making simple, healthy lifestyle choices? What about the health of your loved ones? Your brain's probably serving that up, saying, hey, what about my grandparents? What about my parents? Right? What about siblings that are at risk? Right? It's easy to think about that. And then do we have more control over that, or more control over the unconditional love and support that we have and can show them, reaching out to them routinely, letting them know that we're there, that we care about them, that we love them? What about your automatic brain? Can you control it? Hopefully you guys realized that little thought experiment we did earlier that you can't control that. But our response to it, we have a lot of control over that. And that's what you're learning here in this session with Ted now. What about difficult people? Can you control them? I promise you, you're not special. You're not unique. Everyone has difficult people in their life. It's easy to think, oh, I'm the only one dealing with this. We all have difficult people, right? And we can't control them, but we can control our response to them. Our personal finances, a lot of us have been negatively impacted by the pandemic and business shutting down. Right? We have control over that. We don't have a lot right now. Or we can't execute a financial plan, right? We might have to file for unemployment. We might have to be cutting back, budgeting things a little bit. There are some things that we can do to control that. Our emotions, can you feel whatever you want, whenever you want? No, I wish that would be great if we could, but we can't. But we can choose our response, right? And this embrace piece, we teach an acronym: separate, embrace, evaluate. It helps us learn how to get into alignment with our emotions, how to validate our emotions, and embrace, like we talked about. The government, its response to the pandemic, little control there, but we all have social responsibility, right? To take care of each other, to look out for each other, to be a good citizen, have some more control there. What about change, uncertainty? Can you control that? By definition, it's the opposite, right? But our ability to align our expectations with reality, our ability to embrace the current state of affairs, right? To embrace our emotion about it, more control there. And so when you look at this, the ones here on the right, I think we would all argue if we don't have complete control, we have a lot of influence over. Now my question for you is this: where is most of your mental and emotional time and energy going? It makes total sense that it should be spending a little bit of time on the left. We care about all these things. These are very important to us. But at the end of the day, what do we really have control over? Where are you directing your attention? And when we can redirect our attention back to those things we have more control over, we get our power back, right? We can get back to doing our job, to executing the plan, execute the process, and giving us the best chance to come through this in a strong way. I love this quote. Of course, I'm a former athlete, so I got to throw at least a couple of sports references in here. Bill Belichick, the head coach for the New England Patriots, he's getting interviewed a couple Super Bowls ago. Of course, at this point, he's already won a bunch of Super Bowls, and the reporter's kind of asking him, "Hey, what are you still coaching for? Like, what's your ultimate goal here? All right, with all you've accomplished, what are some things that you still want to accomplish in your career?" And Bill Belichick said, "A good practice today would be at the top of my list." And the reporter's like, "Okay, right. That's not. What's after that? Like, what are you really coaching for?" And then Bill says, "Well, we'll correct it and get ready for tomorrow." Right? Focused on doing his job. In fact, that's a mantra for the New England Patriots: do your job. Right? Do the best you can, and the rest will take care of itself. So trust, embrace, do, and then the now is just a reminder of the present moment, a reminder that life's happening right now, right? A reminder that we can train our mind to be where our feet are. Right? And yes, we want to learn from the past, and yes, we want to plan for the future. That's all really important. But the only place we can do anything about either of those is right now in the present. So we want to spend as much time here as we can, just like Admiral Stockdale. By trusting in the future, he was able to let go of that and embrace the most brutal facts, the most difficult of realities that he was facing, which gave him some power back and allowed him to endure extreme hardship. And we all have that opportunity right now through all of this. So the automatic brain's going to do what it's going to do. It's going to alert you to all kinds of different things. You're going to notice that. And then you can respond with TED Now. And I would highly recommend put this on your desk somewhere, maybe by your bathroom mirror, your coffee maker, by your bed, somewhere where you're going to be reminded of this a lot. And you can just run through, especially when you start to feel the overwhelm. Right? You start to think, oh, gosh, how is this going to end? How is this going to play out? Am I going to be okay? Right? What's going to happen to my family? When those thoughts come in, TED Now is the response plan. Trust, embrace, do your best, and then bring your attention back to what you have control over in the present moment. And it's a mantra that's helped me tremendously. It's helped a lot of people, a lot of professional athletes, a lot of high-performing executives. And I promise you, it works. And it allows us to respond differently, right? When those chairs in our lives are coming at us, right? We don't have to be crippled by those. We can still keep our power and respond effectively. When we're trying to enjoy time at home with our families right now, right, which maybe you're experiencing some of that. There's some struggle with that, right? But at the same time, we want to be able to take advantage of the time that we have while we're at home, and this tool can help you with that. So the last thing I want to leave you with is a mantra, and I know things are still pretty quiet right now. I was just, as I mentioned, talking with a global law firm right before this, and they're starting to do some virtual depositions, some trials virtually. I know things are going to be coming back online in the not too distant future. And when that happens, you all are going to be extremely busy. And you're going to wish you go back to having some time off like you have right now. Bottom line is that as things ramp back up and as the world starts to ask a lot from each of you, from our legal industry as a whole, having the right mindset is going to help you tremendously. In addition, having a really great productivity tool, collaboration tool like Stenovate is going to help you be prepared to come back online faster and stronger than when we went into this pandemic. And the last thing I'll share with you is a mantra that's been really helpful for me. And maybe it's not right now, but as things ramp back up and you guys are going full speed ahead again, pressure is a privilege. It's an opportunity. And the reason is because what you all do matters. If there wasn't pressure, it wouldn't matter. Right? But the fact that the world needs you, the fact that the legal industry needs you, right, to be there to protect the integrity of the transcript, to show up and fill this work shortage the court reporter shortage that we have, there's going to be a lot of pressure applied to you, and it's a privilege because it matters. And so thank you for the work that you all do. Lauren, a big thank you to you and Stenovate for the opportunity to present some of these thoughts, and I hope it's meaningful to your audience.
Yeah, John, thank you so much. I don't even know what else I can say. That was fantastic. And I guess it's kind of a summary. What we keep telling everybody, every court reporter or transcript professional friend that I have is, we're just watching all the headlines come in, and we know that things are about ready to ramp back up. And like you were explaining, we don't know if it's going to happen like super fast and we're just going to be buried in work, but it's important not to set those expectations and to be able to trust that no matter how it happens, it will happen. We know that court reporting is counter-cyclical. I always make the joke that, there's a few things that tend to spike in times of recession, and it's alcohol and cigarettes and court reporting. So that's what happens in the legal industry. And so we know it is coming. We know that there's tons of COVID cases that are getting filed now that, this could last, let's just say hypothetically 6 months, but it could provide 6 years worth of work after this. And because of the shortage stacked on top of all of the proceedings that have been postponed, and then all the new cases coming in because of COVID, we're expecting a very high volume of work. And so whether it starts trickling in or whether it pours down on us, we don't know, but I just keep reminding everybody, like, get your house in order. And to your point, it's, that do piece, control the controllable. Like, we can get ready for that now, like while we have some downtime, start adding scopists and proofreaders to your team and start communicating your preferences early and often, because we're going to need those court reporters in the court reporting chair. And so we need to have a system in place that allows us to appropriately outsource. And so there are things we can be doing now that we should be very excited about and acting upon, and also enjoying our families. And thank you so much for just walking us through all of that, because like you were saying, just to have our head where our feet are, that's our head where our feet, that just sounds like a weird, court reporters will have fun with that one. So yes. You get what I'm saying though. So you guys, those of you who watch this, thanks for watching. And John, thank you so much for spending time with me and with our court reporting community. I know it's going to mean a lot to them. So thanks a lot.
Thanks for having me.